Yep. All right, it's 7 o'clock. I'm going to call the meeting to order. I'll just go through the agenda here quickly. So we have meeting minutes. We have two sets of meeting minutes. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then reserve fund stands at $35,000. There's no one here for anything not on the agenda in public forum. Under new business, we are meeting with the appeals board. John Goldrosen is here. We're going to review the handouts from the joint meeting with the Board of Selectmen. And then we have old business standing items and other business. We have no communications and the town administrator is off today, so we will get no updates from the town administrator. And then the upcoming meetings are listed at the bottom. So, what we'll do is John has another meeting to go to, so we're going to get him in and get his report. We'll go around the table, John, just because we have some new members.
Good.
Mike
Warner. Hi, Mike. John Noon. Hi, John.
Kathleen Otina.
Lucas Moscoso.
Chuck Colby. Hey, John.
Good. Hi.
Rick Anderson.
Yep.
Okay, John, so what we'll do is let you go ahead and present your budget, and then we'll open it up to questions.
Okay. So, particularly where there's new members, I'd like to take this opportunity to explain how we operate as a board and what the financial requirements of the board are and how the budget works. So there are two line items, salaries and expenses. The expenses is minimal, it's $500, and we use that when we need to buy stationery or something of that sort. That's the only expense that we ever have. The salary, we have one employee, that's our recording secretary / administrative assistant, Carol O'Brien, who's been with the board for decades. And I say recording secretary, administrative assistant because her duties go beyond just coming to the meeting and doing minutes. The Zoning Board of Appeals, if you don't know, is the board people have to go to get various kinds of zoning permits. And we have to hold public hearings on any application. The applications have to be advertised in the newspaper, as well as posted in town hall. And notices have to be sent to all of the abutters of the property for which a permit is being sought. So our administrative assistant, besides just coming to the meetings and recording and doing minutes, is the one who picks up the applications when they're filed with the town clerk, prepares the notice to go into the newspaper, places the notice with the newspaper, makes copies of that notice, sends them out to all the abutters, and so forth. So there's a lot of sort of administrative work outside of the meeting. And then the minutes that she makes are fairly extensive minutes. They could be much more limited to meet the requirements of the open meeting law. But I draft the decisions and I take the minutes and effectively turn them into a decision. But we incorporate everything that was said, pro and con, and so forth in the meeting. That becomes part of our decision. So her minutes are not a transcript, but they're more extensive than a lot of boards' minutes would be. Now, having said that, we don't have office hours for the ZBA, so there's no regular time during the week where she has to be somewhere. She does all her work from home. So that's all a way of saying that the workload and the salary requirements, the money that we need, is really it's dependent on how many applications we get every year. Mm-hmm. So, there are some years we don't spend anywhere near our budget. There have been a couple of years we've had to come in for a transfer late in the year because we had a lot of cases that year. My understanding is, we'd say halfway through the year, we may have spent a bit more than half of the $6,000 that was appropriated last year. But we've had about the same number of cases in calendar year 2023 as in 2022, but we've had some more complicated cases. We had all the applications for the marijuana sites, and so a couple of those, as well as some other cases, have required more than one hearing. They've been a lot of questions raised by abutters or whatever. We've continued to a second hearing, let the applicant come in with new plans. So it's a way of saying I think we may have had fewer cases this year, but overall time that we spent in meeting has probably been the same or more. But having said that, we've submitted a budget that's just based on a 2.5% increase for next year, leaving the expense line unchanged, and that's the basis of what we're looking for. But I welcome the chance to explain how we operate, just so. Years ago, I had to come in for a transfer late in the year, and some of the people just, well, why didn't you just cut the hours? Why did you, you knew what your budget was. Why didn't you stay within the budget? Because they just didn't understand that we weren't like a town department that had X number of hours per week. It varies. It's all case dependent. I guess the good news is if we're having more cases, that usually means more tax revenue for the town because there's more building going on as a result of it. So happy to answer any questions,
Excellent,
but I
John.
wanted to give you the overview.
I personally appreciate it. That's part of what I was going to follow up on is, you give a great summary. I think it's important for the board to know exactly what the board does. So does anybody have any questions for John? John.
Just one quick one. Do you expect that things are going to get a little bit crazier the next couple of years with the effort to build affordable housing near the MBTA?
It could if the other meeting I'm going to is actually the planning board is having a meeting tonight on the MBTA communities, and I participated at the last one. I wanted to go to this one. If that gets passed, and if builders actually follow up on it, I mean, there's no requirement. All we're required to do is kind of make the opportunity available by revising our zoning to make it available. Whether builders will come in and do something remains to be seen. I mean, I haven't. The building situation with interest rates being what they are and everything, I think it's probably depressed it, except for these special things like marijuana, and we do have people coming in looking to expand buildings or tear down and put up new buildings in its place. But yeah, could be because even though the new zoning would allow these buildings by right, not require a special permit, they will still require site plan approval, which goes before the zoning board. And that's where, even though we can't turn it down entirely, we still get to look at traffic, parking, just is there anything to buffer it from the neighbors? We can still look at requirements for that. So any of those are still going to come to the ZBA, where a lot of town special permits and site plan approval go to the planning board, but here in Whitman, that goes to the ZBA.
Excellent. Mike, did you have some?
Yeah, just a real quick, and your expenses are incredibly low, but I'm wondering, is a fair amount of that tied to the mailings you have to send out? And we know that the post office increased the rates again this year. Is that a driving factor for you?
No, I think we send it out on the town, through the town's mailing machines.
Oh, okay.
I'm not positive, but I think so. But you actually raised an interesting question, because, I mean, I have tried to do a couple things this year to reduce our expenses in terms even of the. I tried to streamline the way we draft the minutes and the decision to reduce both the time Carol spends on it and the time I spend on it. So it's like I've kind of cut it from a two-step process to one. I tried to reduce it, and it has occurred to me that there are ways in which more of the cost could of the mailings and everything could potentially be imposed on applicants. In some communities, the applicant is the one who goes to the Board of Assessors and gets the list of the abutters who have to be notified. And even some communities,
The mailing.
In some communities, the applicant provides a set of envelopes to the ZBA. By law, the ZBA has to actually send them out. But there may be ways to, again, both, and I've thought of, can't the abutters, could the assessors print out labels there's got to be some way for them to
Yeah.
take an abutters list and print that later. I'm not a technical person, so I don't know that. But there may be ways we can, reduce the work that's involved. But no, I think it goes out on the town's mailing machine, but
yeah.
to the extent the town's affected by that. So that's not shown in our budget then. It would
Very
be
good.
in the
Yeah, no,
town's-
good question.
The town's
Good question.
budget, yeah.
So Ralph Mitchell, John Goldrosen,
Hi,
you met
hey,
John
Ralph.
before, and you met Ralph before. John just gave a really good overview, as he has in the past, of what exactly his department does, zoning board of appeals. So, anybody else have further questions for John?
Nope, John, you had the question I was going to ask, so we got that answered.
And then the only other thing you mentioned, working with other boards. Obviously, you're going to the planning board tonight, and so do you work with the building department as well?
Well, I work closely with the building department. I mean, the planning board, I'm just going because I have some knowledge and expertise on the MBTA thing, so I've wanted to have input on it. We work closely with the building inspector, particularly, where the town does not have a town planner. I mean, if there were one thing I'd love, if there were money available for one thing in town, I'd love to have a town planner and a conservation agent,
Right.
professionals doing this stuff. But effectively, I guess me and the building inspector kind of function but I try to let the building inspector is the one who the applicants meet with, and he tells them what they need to do and who they need to apply to. I try not to have any contact with people outside of the meetings.
Yeah.
Because we're going to be holding a public hearing and voting on it and everything. So I try not to have too much contact with the applicants.
Very good. All right, further questions? All right, John, thank you very
Thank
much.
you. Thank
All
you.
right,
Thank
thanks
you.
for coming.
Thank you.
See you again.
Yeah. Thanks to those of you who've been on this. Well, thanks to those of you who've been on the board a long time and put a lot of work, and all the new members too.
Excellent.
Rick knows this. I was chairman of the finance committee from 1987 to 1991 during a fiscal crisis.
That was a tough time to be on it.
I tell people I used to pack town meeting. There were 800 people at town meeting when I was chairman of the finance.
Yeah, that was it.
So I know what you guys go through. Thank you.
Thanks again.
Yeah. Good night.
In those days, Venus was packed too. What was packed? Venus.
Oh, gosh.
So certain articles would come up,
Yeah, and then they all
and then the
shuffle over.
Exodus would,
Yeah.
from Venus over. And as soon as the vote was taken, the Exodus would head back to Venus.
All right, so that was our only budget meeting for tonight. So, I expect for this meeting not to last very long. But Elizabeth has provided everybody with the handouts that were distributed at our joint meeting with the Board of Selectmen. And also, we have 2 meeting minutes that we could delve into and get those. While we have a light agenda with budget meetings, this would be a good time to be caught up on our meeting minutes. I don't usually like to look at meeting minutes that are sent out on the same day, just because I like to have a chance for the members to take a look at it and amend. But I think in this case, I think it's a good idea that we catch up before we get into a lot of these weekly budget meetings where we have 2 and 3 departments coming in. So with that, we have meeting minutes in this packet.
Yep. Yeah, it should be the 28th and the 5th.
Okay.
I think I put them in backwards too, though, so I think the 5th is first and 28th.
I don't think I have any meeting minutes in mine.
Should be behind the agenda.
This is here.
Yep. Oh. Now I do.
The 5th and
There you
the
go.
28th.
All right, so we'll start with November 28th. Starts on page 649. Everybody have a copy? All right. So this one we're talking to the fire chief. So that was a budget meeting with the fire chief, that first page. I did review these already. And I think there was one thing that maybe needed in my mind.
Well, Chief is identified as Hanlon
Yeah.
first, but the rest of the time he's Clancy. 7:05 p.m.
Where
Fire
did I
Chief.
put him?
Yeah, right.
Oh, yeah, I see it.
Yeah.
So just change Clancy, Hammond to Clancy.
Thank you.
Okay, and anybody else have anything on page 649? Okay, turning it over, two-sided document, we have page 650. We're still in discussion with the fire chief on page 650, top paragraph. At 7:45, then we met with the treasurer collector, Ken Lytell. And yep, I don't see anything that need to be changed. Oh, what's one thing? Oh. Okay, and then under old business at the bottom, we amended the meeting schedule, and then we went into subcommittee reports for Capital Committee, Regional School District Agreement Amendment Committee, and Public Works Department Building Committee. Anybody else, anything on page 650? And then page 651 is just a recap about the meeting available on YouTube and the motion to adjourn at 8:24. Okay. So let's say the motion to accept the meeting minutes from November 28th as amended.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? It's unanimous. All right, thank you very much. And now the meeting minutes from last week, December 5th. And again, Elizabeth was challenged a little bit with the incomplete recording, and so I thought the meeting minutes reflected exactly what transpired. Page 652 starts us off with the building department. And then on page 652, as you recall, we were waiting for the next budget meeting, so we went into some old business, and committee reports were then given at the bottom of page 652. Anybody see anything that needs to be changed? I'll give you a few minutes because these came out late today, so if you want to really take a look, if there's something I read through, I didn't see anything.
The top paragraph, like where the meeting was held. Is that how that's supposed to go down? Because I looked in last year's when we did the joint meeting, and I don't think I actually ended up doing those minutes because I wasn't here. And those were,
Yeah, so we talked.
Is that all right to
Yeah.
do it like that
Because that meeting was recorded as well.
Yeah.
That recording is with the
with the board of
Board of
selectmen?
Selectmen, so we're covered for the joint meeting.
Yeah.
Yep, so the way you wrote it was, following a joint meeting with the Board of Selectmen held at 6 o'clock. I think that's fine, because that meeting was recorded by them, so. And we did wait, as you recall, we did wait till 7 to reconvene. Remember, because we got in here a little early? So,
That second selectman, is that supposed to be MEN or MAN? The selectman meeting room.
I'd say the way you have it, Selectmen meeting room, yeah. Eventually it'd be the Select Board meeting room, but they're still working on
Yeah.
things they need to do to change that, yeah. That'll be a hard one to get used to, too, Select Board. All right, so nothing on page 652. We'll switch over to the other side, page 653. So the other outstanding items were communications, and talked a little bit about the audit. And then we had Wendy Jones for the assessors budget. So that was, I thought that was a really good exchange. And then the meeting motion was made at 7:58 to adjourn, and the upcoming meetings are listed there. Anybody have anything else they want to amend? So there was nothing to amend on this one, so I'll entertain the motion to accept it as it is.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second.
First.
Yeah, good job.
Did you find something?
Oh no, I was gonna raise my hand.
All in favor?
Yeah, I was gonna raise my
There
hand.
we go. It is unanimous. All right. Good job. Thank you.
I think, yeah, Elizabeth was expecting some. I saw that on the email. We did a quick lunch and expecting to see some feedback on
Oh, you
this.
know what? I wanted to get them done just because I knew that there wasn't much else going on
Yeah,
for tonight.
exactly.
And I was
Slide 'em in. There you go.
like, just do it.
Yeah.
Which-
And because it was a partial recording, it's better to do it the sooner than later, because then you
Yeah,
can.
Well, you know what I did? I
Yeah.
wrote a lot of
Yeah, you would.
what I could down just to get it on something
Get it started.
until I had time to get back.
Once you found out the recording and shut up, yeah. All right, so looking at your agenda then, the next thing on new business was to review handouts for the Board of Selectmen joint meeting. So, I mean, this obviously would have been best to have these handouts prior to the joint meeting for questions, but now that you have an opportunity to have them, I think it's a good idea to take a look at looking at like the fiscal year 25 preliminary revenue and expenditure forecast. I think they did a pretty good job doing a summary of revenue, expenditures, and I mean some of this was talked about at the meeting, but I think it's good if we can go through it a little bit more with a finer tooth comb and see if there's something in here that needs to be tweaked a little as we look at what our recommendations are going to be. I think everything we get throughout the budget season should be part of our final discussion when we make recommendations to town meeting. So, it's access to good and thorough information is critical for this board to make the right decisions. So it's good to have this early, I think. And then you have the fiscal 25 estimated local receipts. So there's guidelines too for what you should be using for percentages on these various things. So you see the marijuana excise is looking. I don't really see what fiscal 25 90%. It says 0, right?
Yes.
So that we don't expect to have any income from any of the 3 approved marijuana facilities.
Oh, no. Marijuana excise is $100,000 in fiscal 24.
It says estimate, fiscal 24
Right.
estimate, right?
And then 90%, is the 90% based on fiscal 25, 90% estimate
Must be based on 20.
based on fiscal 24's estimates?
Yeah, because 90% of 100,000 is 90,000, not 0, right? In my mind.
Yeah.
Right?
Were they basing it off of 23 when there was none, so they don't have a,
Well, I
Until you
think what
actually
they're
get
being conservative because they don't feel that the place is going to be open,
yeah.
right, in time to generate any revenue for fiscal 25. That, to me, what that 0 says. But had we had an opportunity to have this in advance of the meeting, we could have asked that question.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think maybe follow up. All I wanted to do for tonight was just to kind of like review these, so you can take them home and even give them another review, and maybe make some questions that we can pose to Mary Beth. Hopefully, we'll have her at the next meeting. If somebody needs some more follow up, obviously we could do an email as well. Sean Kane is the liaison to the Board of Selectmen, and it wouldn't be unusual for us to, put an email out to him to get some more information on, these. I mean, I know he was instrumental in preparing these documents with the other town departments that were in the room, last week. So.
These 90% estimates aren't based on anything from 24 estimates. I'm just doing 90% of the 24. Let me back out. Let me do 2, 1, 2, 4.
Right.
Yeah, the math,
Right, even the meals tax
the math
is,
doesn't work.
Divided by 0.9.
90% is higher than 24,
2, 3, 6.
24's.
Oh, so it's 90% of the fiscal 23 collected.
23
That's what I was
collected.
going to wonder, is they go back a year
Yeah,
to...
they went
There you
back to
go.
The meals
So
20.
that's why the other one's zero. There was none.
Yeah,
The marijuana.
yep,
Okay, so it goes back to the first
to
column.
23.
Okay, well that makes sense. Because 90% of zero is zero,
Yeah.
no matter how many times you do it, the math.
Don't we have
Yeah.
to have fiscal 24 local receipts certified when we set the tax rate? We being the Board of Assessors? Do we know what the fiscal 24 local receipts are now that the tax rate's been set?
Right, because these are listed as estimates.
It would be nice to know, what did we actually, because the marijuana one just clearly stands out, right?
Right.
Did we make money or not? And if so,
Yeah, I don't think any of them are open, so I don't think they're going to generate any revenue until they open, right?
yeah, I have no idea.
Yeah, I don't either, for sure. But I'm just,
But they put an estimate.
I would think there would be some fanfare associated with.
Right, but there was an estimate last year, and there should be something that says we estimated 24, and this, even if it was just a point in time as to where we are today,
Yeah,
it would be helpful as we estimate whether whether that 90% is on target or whether it's way off in some
right.
ways.
So it would be good if we could. The second column was not estimates, was actuals.
Actuals. But it wouldn't be bad to see both. Honestly, I'd like to see what the estimate was for 24 and how
And then
close
see
were
where,
they.
yeah, see where they came in.
Okay, so that's some good follow up. We can ask those questions and perhaps get an updated document for fiscal 25 local receipts that have actual numbers. That. So I guess the idea of local receipts, right, is kind of projecting what we expect to bring in. So when we're, doing our calculations for the levy, we're using estimates, right? We're kind of guessing. But the further into the year we go, the better we should be at guessing because we have up-to-date documents.
We do have the revenue summary page, which shows 23, 24, and then projected, but they do not match line item to line item. So, it's apples to oranges the way that this is laid out. It doesn't show me what the motor vehicle excise tax was, what it actually revenue was. We have no idea.
So let's use the two documents then, right? So let's do the where is the excise? Was there an excise on this one?
Well, that's what I'm saying, is if you look at the estimated local receipts, do not match the revenue summary.
So, yeah, so the local receipts on the revenue summary, that's a one big number.
Oh,
So
I see.
somewhere down here, that number should be.
There's
should be
there's
a map.
line items, et cetera,
Yeah.
that are attached
Yeah.
to them, but I don't know, is this a cherry sheet? Is it a tax title? Is it a snow removal? I mean, I'm, just throwing the names out here that they have, but nowhere is there a trash or penalty, marijuana, boat, meals. So I don't know where these numbers came in into play here.
So total local receipts in fiscal 24, right? Where it's 5,716,100.
Actually, that
Right,
matches
this number?
down here.
You seeing it in there?
Yeah, and that.
Oh, the local receipts total?
5,716,100.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it does. So at the bottom of the 24 estimate, there's that number. That was
Okay.
the actual.
Well, was it? Now I'm questioning it.
Yeah,
That
why
the
is it
actual
exactly?
exactly? Come on.
How did that happen?
I've got
Right.
25 cents in my pocket all the time, right? And the previous year,
Well,
obviously,
the
we were under.
23 up
23
here is
was under
5222, yeah, and over here
versus
we have
6114.
6 million, yeah.
So my gut instinct is that the 24 is not an actual revenue.
Yeah, right. There's definitely some questions on this, the way this was put together. So I think there's good questions here. Who would be best to go to for this? Who do you think was instrumental in putting this together? Do you think it was Ken?
Was it Ken? That's what I would.
I would guess Ken.
Yeah.
But since Ken has Mary Beth's old job, we could ask Mary Beth and Ken to weigh in on this.
Yep, or even Sean Kane, who's the liaison to the Finance Committee. Getting a hard no from John. Okay. So we'll get someone in to give us an update. So I would say, like, during the week, this week, if you can, take a look at these, highlights anything else that you see that really doesn't add up, so to speak. And same thing with the budget worksheet that we have. Now, Kathleen, you asked for a different format, right? Did you get that?
I did. Mary Beth did send me a spreadsheet,
Oh,
an
good.
Excel spreadsheet. So I can add, and I have begun to add, the requests from the budget managers as they come before us. So we've met with 6, and now John Goldrosa makes 7. And just to let you guys know, the $270,000 or $273,060 projected deficit, that's based on, I will never use the word fictitious again. Unrealistic and preliminary numbers. If we add the 6 budgets that we've already heard, the budget deficit is over $1 million. That's before the schools show up.
Right.
So
that's the police and fire budget that came from them, but that's not what the recommendation from the town administrators. Right.
but when we have the chairman of the Board of Selectmen after we leave their meeting stating the schools should be looking for an operational override, the schools are not contributing to this $270,000 deficit.
Or the $1 million.
Or the $1 million.
Not yet. It's going to be way over $1 million by the time the schools come in. So I would like another joint meeting of the Board of Selectmen and the FinCon to talk about not repeating last year's nonsense, where the schools are targeted time and time again as the bad guys for causing the budget crisis, the revenue shortfall. We have requests from budget managers, and I applaud the chiefs for going for what they think their department needs. They ignore, year after year, they ignore the 2.5% because they believe they need either additional personnel or additional equipment. So when do we make those decisions? Hopefully not April 28th when we take free cash.
Right.
And E&D for the schools. So let's just be honest early on and say we've got a budget crisis in fiscal 25. We've got over $1 million deficit already. And when are we going to start making the decisions? When are we going to start telling budget managers?
Well, we have to get through all of the budget manager presentations first, I would say. Mike.
So I guess my question there is there's two parts to it, right? One is we've seen a fair number of the budgets that have been submitted higher than normal, but a lot of that is due to union negotiations and step increases, which makes me start to wonder, is the 2.5% regarding salaries in those unionized positions a realistic goal to set, right? Or are you already starting off, in a negative space? The other thing I am concerned about is, and I don't know if you took it into account your math there, but we've also been seeing capital expenses being thrown into the mix there too, and I don't know how that's going to fly. Because we've got, just like the fire department had, what was it? The ambulance probably will come out of a specialty fund, but an engine was in there as well, and
his actual budget.
No, and that's the thing is. So what we're saying when we're talking about what the budget is, but then on top of it are these other capital pieces.
And I'm on the capital committee, and Don Essen does have, and hasn't shared with the rest of us, does have all of the capital requests from everyone except library, and I believe he said council on aging. I don't think they're going to break the bank.
No.
So I will send an email to Don. We're not meeting till after the holidays to say, could you send that information out? I've got time on my hands and nothing better to do than look at budgets.
Yeah, but it's a little concerning there because we've got two major build projects. I know I've said this before, and we've all discussed it, but we have things that are out there. We're not seeing them hitting the numbers that they need to hit to be compliant with what the administrator asked for, and then we have a lot of capital on top of it. And sooner or later, we're going to see a really hard no.
Right. I mean, we've reached a cliff before, right before COVID, where we said we were going to need an override. in order to meet the expenditures. Because what we have is an unsustainable budget, and we still have an unsustainable budget. But I think it's important for capital to understand that the funding for capital now is out of free cash. So free cash is the money that's turned back at the end of the year from surpluses from all departments. So, I mean, it's still, it's part of the tax base, absolutely, yeah, without question. But you're not going to see it in these lines on Article 2, that's all, capital. Capital is like a whole separate funding.
Yeah, but if the working budget's coming in awfully higher, where have they grabbed in the past?
Oh, right.
Yeah, so
Yes,
they-
if we have a deficit at the end, we have taken money out of free cash, which pushes capital projects off, and that you know what happens to that?
It just
Deferred
snowballs.
maintenance. It just snowballs. Yeah.
But as Mike said, the 2.5% advice from the town administrator, keep your salary. Well, if you've already negotiated a contract with the police chief, Chief Hamlin said he and the deputy chief have a 5% increase in their contract. So you know that the fire chief and deputy fire chief are not going to settle for 2.5% raises. They're negotiating their contract. So I use the word unrealistic and preliminary.
Right. Yeah.
Again, negotiators are negotiating very generous, supporting salaries.
So that's another thing that we've mentioned before. At some point, these 2.5s are going to have to be ones, and we've talked about zeros
Or
too.
salary freeze.
We've had it. We've had it before. I mean, it wouldn't be the first
It's not
time.
unheard of.
John knew.
I think we need to buy her a Roger's Thesaurus so that she can use a plethora of different words to avoid getting called on the carpet by the selectmen.
Cornucopia of vocabulary.
Point two is, we have been doing the same thing over and over again. We have the Madden report. We have the Collins report. We have all of these reports that say you're up against it, you're going broke, you've got to stay 2.5 or under. Well, all that means is, to the actual department heads, well, 2.5. Well, we'll give everybody 2.5. And then, yeah, we need a new vehicle. Oh, we need a new this. We need a new that. And automatically, you know, the 2.5 gets totally abused. And the reality is, it's going to continue until somebody says to the department heads, no, whoever is negotiating all of this, you can't give out 2.5% raises with additional step increases on top of it. And then one of the things I've complained about before is the capital committee. You go in with your request as a town department head, whether it's a truck or it's a major building repair or whatever it might happen to be. They will say, yeah, you need that. They won't give you a priority and say, yeah, you do need that. But we've got 25 other projects ahead of you in our estimation, our professional estimation. That doesn't happen. It's everything gets approved if it looks like it's a need. So it's basically been out of control. And, well, I'm not going to say that the group I accused before of spending like drunken sailors, I mean, they contribute because they allow some of this contractual stuff to go on and then present us with the budget and ask us to figure out how to pay for it. But they are contributing. Everybody is, in their own way, contributing to basically sinking us into Hobart's pond. The budget ain't gonna float. And the only thing that has saved us, though it wasn't the most pleasant thing, was the pandemic.
Right.
Because the government, federal government, and state government started throwing money at local government, and that's how we've managed to get by. We should have hit the wall
2 years
3 years
ago.
ago,
Yeah.
4
Oh, I
years
agree.
ago.
Yeah.
and we haven't.
Well, it's delayed, like you said, because of the pandemic. Yeah.
Right.
So I think this might be the first year, though, that the capital committee is going to be prioritizing capital needs because they're not all going to be able to be paid for. I don't think.
That would be nice.
Yeah.
Because that seems like there's almost a put it on the warrant and
you're gonna
let the
get it.
town decide what they want to spend. But nobody is setting a priority at the front. And
Right.
in the end, that's not the way that works. It's just I've got 20 articles to go through. We'll say yes or no to all of them. But we don't know, do we need this more than that? That's
There
what
is
has
a
to be.
matrix, and I'm learning, Justin's really good about it, and I'm learning what the matrix is, but is there another funding source? Did you get a grant for this? But I loved what you said 2 meetings ago, Mike, when it's like, just because there's a coupon for this doesn't mean you have to buy it. And just
Right.
because there was a coupon for something, was it on your 5-year plan? If it's not on your 5-year plan, then you don't buy it. And very few departments have a 5-year plan, which is what I'm pushing Dawn to. I made the suggestion that we come up with the 5-year plan with the input from the department heads. He said, no, it's not our job, so fine.
Setting
We can be
priorities
proactive.
is not their job either. He has said that.
Well,
It should
Dawn's
be.
Dawn is learning. Dave
It definitely should be.
I think Dave Cadero had a pretty
How
tight
many
fist
years have
on
we
that for a
gone
couple
through
of things.
this where they have not set priorities?
We've asked for them, right?
We asked.
I
but it's-
understand we've asked. Have they delivered?
Well,
No.
Well, I think, like I said, this year is going to be a test. I mean, we've said that we were on a cliff for the last 3 or 4 years, but like because of the pandemic, because of the federal money that came in, we just had a stay of execution. But
And
Absolutely.
people talk about having to make hard decisions, and well, nobody's made them.
right, because they
And-
haven't had to.
Yeah, but you should really look at it.
Yeah.
Obviously, the taxpayers are very concerned about these 2 big projects, and the meeting Thursday night will present more of a tax increase
Right.
with South Shore Votech. And already there are people feeling a lot of angst about that. So, some hard decisions should be made to kind of control what we have, what we're spending, what we really need. Spend it on what we really need. Don't spend it just because we have it.
Right. Good. All
Just
good
because
points.
even all that federal money. I'm concerned. There was a nice article. Everybody probably knows it, but yes, the whole country's coming out of the pandemic. The government money, the federal money is drying up. Well, what about the schools who got that money also, and they're in the same predicament? They're trying to play catch up. They've hired people. They're trying to get the kids back, to get them back in line with what they missed. And a lot of that was funded with that one-time money.
ESSER 3 money has to be spent by December of 24,
Yep.
which means it's in this current
Yeah.
school budget.
So so
And I will be in.
And now we have to break the dependency.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
Next,
Extra money.
it's the 20th, so next Wednesday, the superintendent will be presenting the school committee with his first stab at the budget. And I have no inkling what the enrollment looks like. I have a sense that the high school enrollment is plummeting.
Wow.
How many of the ESSER 3 positions is he going to try to keep in the operating budget with general funds, not ESSER funds? I don't know. So it's going to be interesting. I guess that's a good word, right?
Yeah.
It's not true.
Safe word.
To see what kind of decisions have to be made. But because at some time at the end of the day, if the enrollment goes down, the number of positions have to go down. And I'm an advocate for the schools, but you can't have class sizes of 10.
right. Yeah.
And
I want to add too is Chief Hanlon. I thought was very good because I asked a question of him. I think you remember where we're spending a lot of money on overtime for officers. Is it more productive to just hire another body and get rid of the overtime that we're spending? And his thought was it can work, but down the line, I thought that the fact that he was looking 5 years down and how that would increase through steps and other things was very commendable.
Yeah.
Yet I don't know that I've seen that from everybody so far.
Right.
Well, a few years back when the former fire chief advocated to add on a bunch of people, there was discussion on how it should help on the overtime. Maybe not eliminate it, should help, but
then you have to outfit these guys.
yeah.
Right,
You
and
know,
that's-
turnout gear and all that. I mean,
Yeah.
cruisers.
So, I'm not
Put
so
on
sure.
another copy.
Not so
That
sure it did
was-
because
that
there
was
are all
his
other
thing, was
there are
he
all
are- he was
there are all
already
other
there.
services.
Yeah, yeah.
Mine just continues to go up and up and up and up and up.
It's the maintenance and ongoing costs that go on. That's never brought into. You're looking at what is it
Yeah.
going to cost today to
Yeah.
buy this truck or to hire this person, but what does that mean over the next 20 years?
Yeah.
Right. When you talk about those steps and lanes, you know, compounding.
Or just
Yeah.
like you said,
When 2.5 becomes
Equipment.
4, 5,
7.
7.
John?
Well, and the other factor, when you start to go down the road, Plymouth retirement,
Yeah.
Plymouth County retirement money. I mean, we're getting whacked pretty seriously
We've had a,
nowadays with what we have to contribute.
and it's only going to go up from. It's not. Yeah, it's only going to go up.
they increased by 9.21%. Our looking at the math really quick, we had a 4% estimated increase for our revenue in 2025. So we're taking in 4%, 4.5%, and just
some of these
just
are-
that retirement goes up by almost 10%.
Right.
Yeah.
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 It's not sustainable.
No, it's not.
No.
I don't want to even talk about health care. We all know how that
Yeah.
is. But
Right. John?
Just one other point. Rosemary basically looked at this package and wanted, in general, where did everything come from?
Right.
I just wanted to point that out. I know we're raising questions, but
Yes.
I think when she's back and we have a couple of people that can answer questions, I think it could be a long
Yeah.
session.
Well, here's the thing, too. I mean, there's two schools of thought on that, right? So if you have some information that you're using to develop this material, just send it to us, right? Why wouldn't you, right? If it has an effect on the financial interests of the town, let us know how the sausage is made, right? Who's it going to hurt? So I think what Rosemary needs to do is just narrow it down to what documents would you like to see? Which parts of the revenue forecast would you like backup for? And what is it? What should it be? You know, so yeah, it's a good point. We should be getting the backup for these documents. So I think, like I said, tonight's assignment is to go back into them and find out what you need, so that we have everything that we need to go into the rest of the budget meetings more informed. I think this does give us a little bit better of a perspective when you know exactly what we have, and you know, when the department comes in with a 17.6% increase in their expense line, we'll let them know right out of the gate that this isn't the year. You know, I mean, you always have those easy phrases like "this isn't a building year," right? We heard it from the town administrator Lincoln Heineman used to use that expression all the time. When you're looking for level fund, you're not looking to add people, right? You're not looking to add services necessarily. We gotta make this more sustainable. That's all.
point there too is when you say we're going to level fund, that's not actually a level fund. That's a cut. I can't level fund.
Right. Level of service. is really-
Level of service is one thing, but I think there's a lot of association. Level funding equals level service. No, it does not, because life continues to get more expensive.
Right.
And at some point,
We're gonna
you
talk
say
about
yourself,
service cuts.
We're going to have to cut, whether it be
Yeah.
teachers or officers, or
Yeah.
something has to give.
Yeah, I 100% agree. So it's going to be our job to be on the front lines of that, and we're going to make some hard decisions, I think, in the next year.
Well, we will recommend some hard
Right.
decisions, but the hard decisions will have to be made.
But I mean, like John said, we have the tools. We have the Madden report. We have, the survey that was done. We have, a lot of input from the taxpayers to help guide us. But at the end of the day, you're right. It's their decision at town meeting. So.
Some of those reports are useless. I'll be very honest with you. I've read the strategic plan. The Whitman Middle School is not mentioned once. How could a 5-year strategic plan from 2022 to 2027 not include $135 million exposure? It's not in there. So the documents we have are only as good as the information that was put into it. And some of the documents.
Well, to say they're not useful, I don't think that's fair. I think they have a value. I mean, it's better than.
It's like a book with a couple of chapters missing.
Yeah, well, you have to include that information. That's all.
Or is it a map that doesn't have some of the new roads put on it yet? Maybe.
Yeah, right.
So, as I'm looking through this, there's a question I have on how they're calculating things here, right? You've got the current levy, it's on either of these documents, prior rear levy, then it's a new growth estimate that's on there, and add 2.5%. We know, where is this 2.5% coming from?
That's Proposition 2.5.
The property tax.
Okay.
Yeah.
Proposition 2.5 allows you to add 2.5% to the levy every year.
Okay.
That's
Thanks.
what that
No
is.
more.
Right,
Okay.
and no more. Right. So that's where that number comes
Yeah,
from.
it just. There's a lot of things there. There's to a layman. I'm not.
Yeah, no,
I'm not
that's
picking
good.
those out, so.
Good question. Yeah.
And again, at the end, local receipts, they're looking on maybe 10 million, hopefully. I mean,
Yeah, and I do want to see what fiscal
Local
24
receipts and
says, because we went from, on adding new growth in 23, we went from 378,000 to 24 being 632,000, but 25 we're only at 450,000.
Could you repeat that?
Yeah, the adding new growth
Yep.
in 23 was 378,000. Then it went, they estimated, I think that's an estimate in 24, to 632. They almost doubled their added new growth.
I think that's close to accurate.
Is it? Okay.
That, yes, because in order to set the fiscal 24 tax rate, which they did last week, they needed to have real numbers.
Real numbers?
The estimate for fiscal 25 is the 450, so there was a lot more growth in this town in fiscal 24 than you would have expected if you looked just at fiscal 23 and did a projection. So I believe the
Why scale
632
back on 25?
no less they're
they
expecting.
go to 85% of, I believe one of their operating models is let's use 85% of last year's real
As
numbers.
the estimate basis.
Yes.
Going forward.
Well, just again, if they move forward with the building that they're talking about, that's more people and more things. But okay.
And as far as on that same page, if you look further down, overlay surplus, I think we just got that total,
Yes,
Yeah.
when-
Oh, yeah.
right? So right now that's at 0, so that's going to be helpful. We have a pretty healthy overlay surplus.
And was it a couple 100,000?
I think it was 300 and something.
Yeah. Positive note, it was nice to actually get that in a timely fashion.
Yeah,
It is
Yeah.
nice to have cooperation.
I thought it was timely.
Yeah, very
last week,
timely.
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
So,
We asked for it and it came in less than a week.
yeah.
She didn't get the memo. Don't tell her.
Ignore these people.
Don't tell
outsider.
her.
Outsider.
Right.
But we have a new town administrator this year. Maybe that will help to do things a little differently. Or, I mean, we certainly have gotten information has flowed better, I think.
Yes.
Yes.
Definitely.
So again, like, if there's something you're missing, some questions that you have, like this is like the only opportunity that we're going to have when we get hard into the budget season. We don't have a lot of time for revenue projections and that type of thing because we're meeting with town departments, and then that's the end of the meeting. So I think this is a good chance for this week to take a look at these, and we'll fill in some questions that you have with the next time we have the town administrator here. We can get anybody here you want. We can get the accountant back in here. We can get the treasurer collector. So you shouldn't wonder about anything. You should ask, and we'll get more information. Does anybody have anything else then on the review of these documents from last week? Generally, because like I said, specific questions, we don't have any problem getting specific answers. So that brings us to old business, subcommittee reports, capital committee.
And so for the first of the year.
Okay. Regional agreement?
Meets, if it's not next Monday, it couldn't be the following, that would be Christmas. We meet soon. I have to check my calendar.
Okay.
It may be next Monday.
And the middle school building committee?
Meets next Tuesday.
And you are
I'm
invited?
still a member, yes. I never wasn't a member.
Good.
Despite
Excellent.
the chair's wishes.
Yep.
Yeah, so we meet at 4:30. It's going to be a lengthy meeting. I'm on the subcommittee to negotiate the contract with the OPM and the architects. We still haven't, and I'm annoyed with everybody, those two groups and Jeff. We haven't done anything since the vote. So I hope that I have something in my hands within the next 48 hours to have a contract with the OPM and the contract with the architects so we can start doing something real. So I anticipate it'll be at least a 2-hour meeting, and I might be a little bit late getting from the high school to here next Tuesday.
Next Tuesday. Okay. Excellent. All right. Thank you for that. Public Works Department Building Committee. So met last night. We had the OPM in attendance. We did not have the architect. So we had the contract that went out to be signed. So the committee voted to accept the contract as it was amended with Page Construction. So some concerns are the delay associated with getting the special legislation passed. We still don't have the all of the money to move forward, but the contractor seems like they have been pretty patient. So whether that means they don't have a very big workload, when that special legislation passes, though, we can expect the contractor to be rolling in to get started, especially if they have no other project. So the DPW, the ongoing operations there's some concern that they're going to be moving the equipment out of the DPW over to the Armory. That's where the maintenance facility is going to do their work. Unfortunately, we found out last night, too, that they really don't have the building empty. If, in fact, the contractor does roll in January to start, they're nowhere near ready to vacate the building. So Bruce Martin mentioned last night, they moved everything away from the exterior wall. So most of the stuff is not usable. And so it was his expectation that the contractor was just going to take everything and throw it away with the building. But and the OPM was pretty clear that the contractor is going to say, we're not going to do that for free. It's like, you're selling your house and you just leave a bunch of stuff and you say, you deal with it, right? So I'm a little concerned that we're at the point now where we're not prepared for the contractor to come in. And it's a very real possibility that they could be starting in January. So that was conveyed to the committee and back to the DPW that they got to expedite
Start cleaning house.
Yeah, we got to get that stuff out of there. So also scheduled a meeting with the contractor, Page Construction, for next week, just to see what their expectations are. Can they wait until April? That certainly would help the DPW with their operations. They wouldn't have to vacate the building, but they may say, yeah, we'll do that, but this is what it's going to cost.
Might boost
right?
the cost up, right?
So those are hard, questions that need to be answered. So there's going to be a meeting with the contractor, hopefully scheduled for next week. Not with the full committee, but with the subcommittee to meet with them and ask questions about expectations and timelines. So we're moving forward. Again, a little concerned with the delay associated with the special legislation as well. So that apparently was delayed, according to the clerk's office, because it wasn't properly stamped before it was submitted to the legislators. So it had to get returned for the proper documentation.
What was the need for the special legislation in the first place?
It was bond council's determination that the way it was worded in the town meeting wasn't correct. It has to do with having a vote or a special town election related to ballot, related to a warrant article. It didn't happen that way, and it has never happened that way. So bond council said, we don't care what has happened in the past. This is what needs to happen. So I guess looking at the legislative end of it, it does happen often enough that there is a form that's already prepared that has everything ready to plug in your problem, send it through to your legislators, and they do spit it back out within a couple of weeks. So that's, a poor summary of why we need the special legislation.
This was for the annual town meeting.
Right.
Nothing to do with what we did in November with moving funds from unexpended articles in
No.
the DPW. So
Didn't have
this is
anything to do with that.
All right.
Nope. John.
Just a comment. I know it's silly to say this, but we paid legal services to have that question set up for town meeting.
Right.
Do we get a refund?
I don't know. So again, this is a determination from a bond council, that hasn't ruled in previous experiences that we had this, situation. So like I said, going forward, we know what we need to do. Let's put it that way. But it doesn't certainly bode well for a good start to this project, So, but that's where we are. Hopefully, we get we really have to make it clear to our general or apparent low bidder that we have a shovel-ready project. You know what I mean? They put a bid in, and they expect to be, handed a job. Especially like I said, if they don't have other projects going on. January is a perfect month to do demolition, right? I can't see them saying that they would be willing to wait till April, unless they were swamped with work. I don't know that to be the case. So that's why that meeting next week is important, and I'll have another report for the committee after that happens.
Is it before or after our meeting?
I think it's after. Well, it hasn't been scheduled yet, so
Okay.
it'll probably be 2 weeks away.
So after Christmas.
Right.
Okay. Can I ask you a money question? Because I'm looking for the same information from the superintendent and the OPM. When are the taxpayers going to get hit? And is the $22 million DPW going to go out at once? I'm hopeful that the 135, it's not going to be 135 because we'll get payments from the MSBA, but I'm looking for answers from the OPM. How do school buildings access funds? How does it go? Does the taxpayer get hit all at once with a bill, or is it over the course of 2 or 3 years that it's rolled out?
I think that would be a good question for Ken. If you a specific answer, we get it from Ken.
The town treasurer.
Treasurer collector.
Treasurer collector. I've asked John Stanbrook to be ready to report next Tuesday at the Whitman Middle School Building Committee, so that people like Mr. Hines, is that his name?
Yeah,
I
that's
feel
the
awful
information,
for people who are sitting there saying, how soon should I put my house on the market so I don't have to look at tax foreclosures? It's not going to happen for a couple of years from the school's perspective.
Right.
So I believe it would be responsible of town leaders, and I think we're part of the town leadership, to inform the citizens of the town, yes, the bill is coming, but it's not going to be next, your next quarterly bill is not going to reflect.
Yeah. I would be surprised if the next year you had any change to your tax bill.
And if that's the case, that should be relayed, because there was a lot of people working hard to get information out on how important it was and why we need a new school, but now the people that this is really going to be up against, like you said, and maybe it'll make them sleep a little better for now and not get all worried about that.
And I don't have the answer, and I
don't either.
If I don't get it, I will be calling people in Braintree and Rockland, where they just built new schools, and say, all right, how did you fund your schools?
Yeah.
When did the tax bills start to get impacted?
Right.
And find out who the people in those two places are, because they're immediate. Rockland just opened the school this fall, and Braintree may have opened it up a year ago. But they're local, and they just did it. So if I can't find out from our local officials, I'll find out from people nearby who've just gone through the same experience. 'Cause I really don't want the public to be sitting there for the next year and 2 years saying, when am I going to get hit? When is this?
Yeah.
All right, so for me, I will ask that question to the building committee and have the answer the next time we meet. Anybody else have anything under new business? Okay, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Okay.
All in favor? Okay, thank you all for coming. Thank you all for participating.